Let's talk about something that we all do probably more often than we'd like to admit: guessing. It feels like a small thing, right? A little shortcut. But what if I told you that guessing is actually a massive, hidden tax on your team, your safety, and yeah, your bottom line? Today, we're going to break down why kicking the guessing habit is maybe the single most professional move you can make. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to pull back the curtain on the real costs of guessing. Then, we'll dig into the mindset shift that separates the amateurs from the pros. After that, we'll see why this is a system problem, not a people problem. Then, I'll give you a super practical tool to fix it. And finally, we'll talk about how leaders can make this the new normal.
So let's just get right into it. In the moment, a guess feels harmless, maybe even efficient. But those little guesses, they add up. They have this compounding effect that quietly bleeds an organization dry in 4 very specific and pretty damaging ways. Okay, first up, cognitive load. I want you to just picture your team members and imagine they're carrying a mental backpack all day long. Every single time they have to guess about something, it's like adding another rock to that pack. It is exhausting. It just drains their ability to focus, it makes simple mistakes way more likely, and you know what? It's a fast track straight to burnout.
The second cost is, well, it's a sneaky one, and that's what makes it so dangerous: invisible rework. You're not going to see this as a line item on your profit and loss statement, but trust me, it is absolutely destroying your margins. It's that extra truck roll back to a site. It's the job that mysteriously takes 2 hours longer than it should have. It's that customer callback for what they call a little fix. It is truly death by 1,000 cuts.
And then there's what I call false accountability. Think about it. When a guess goes wrong, who gets the blame? It's almost always the person who made the guess, right? But the real failure wasn't the person. It was the system that put them in a position where they had to guess. This just breeds a culture of blame, and man, it destroys trust faster than anything else I can think of.
And finally, the most critical one of all, safety drift. You're out in the field, you're not quite sure what the next step is, but you feel that pressure, that need to keep things moving. So what happens? You take a shortcut. Nobody ever wakes up in the morning and intends to be unsafe. It's just the natural, predictable result when ambiguity crashes into our need for momentum. So this all brings us to a really crucial distinction. Professionals, true professionals, they get this. They understand this compounding cost. They've made a deliberate choice to stop guessing, not just because it's a nice idea, but because they recognize it is the only professional way to operate, period.
So how do we actually make that shift? Well, it doesn't start with a new policy. It starts inside our own heads. Moving from guessing to clarifying, it's not just a change in what you do, it's a fundamental change in your mindset. The real transformation is in our internal dialogue.
And this, right here, just illustrates that shift perfectly. See, the amateur is worried about how they look. I don't want to ask a question and look dumb. But the professional, they're thinking in systems. Hey, unclear inputs always create bad outputs. The amateur tries to be the hero. Don't worry, I'll just make it work. The professional thinks like an economist. Clarifying right now is way cheaper than fixing it later. You see the difference? It's a complete reframing of what your job actually is.
And this gets to a really deep insight. You know, real professional confidence, it isn't bravado. It's not about puffing your chest out and acting like you know all the answers. No, true confidence comes from that quiet certainty that you have the clarity you need to do the right thing.
So if guessing isn't a personal failing, then what is it? It's a system failure. Simple as that. Too many organizations tell their people, don't be afraid to ask questions, but then they fail to build the actual infrastructure that makes good, clear decisions possible.
And the absolute bedrock of that infrastructure is something called decision rights. Now that might sound like some corporate jargon, but it's really simple. It's just about making it crystal clear who owns which decisions. When those lines are blurry, people are forced to guess just to keep things from grinding to a halt. In fact, you'll find that the highest performing teams out there have provided absolute clarity on these 3 questions for every single person. 1, what can I decide all on my own? 2, what do I need to quickly confirm with someone? And 3, when do I have to stop everything and escalate this immediately? Answering these 3 questions is a total game changer. Okay, so that's the theory, but how do we actually put this into practice? Especially when things are moving fast, like out in the field. What we need is a simple, easy-to-remember tool that anyone can use right there on the spot. We need a clarity filter.
And here it is. It's a dead simple 3-step rule of thumb. First, is there a potential safety risk here? If the answer is yes, it's always the same response. Stop work, escalate. No exceptions. Second, Does this decision affect the customer promise or the scope of the project? If yes, you confirm, you don't guess. And finally, if it's a minor, cosmetic, or easily reversible choice, that's what you are empowered to decide right then and there.
Now, you might be wondering, how effective is a simple little filter like this? Well, it eliminates an estimated 70% of all situations where people guess. Just think about that for a second. One simple tool, if you teach it to everyone, can wipe out the vast majority of the ambiguity that causes rework, kills trust, and creates safety problems. That's an unbelievable return on your investment. But, asking for clarity is a skill. The way you ask a question can signal one of two things: competence or anxiety. A pro doesn't ask these vague, helpless-sounding questions. They use structured, clarifying questions that actually help move the ball forward.
Let's look at an example. To confirm scope, we're replacing X, but not Y, correct? Just listen to the tone there. It's calm, it's specific, and it ends with a simple request for confirmation. It shows you've already thought it through and you're just validating the path forward. Oh, here's another one I absolutely love. I see two options. Do you want speed or longevity prioritized here? This is just brilliant. Instead of just asking, what should I do, you're presenting solutions and asking for the guiding principle behind the decision. That's not helplessness, that's problem solving. It signals incredible competence. So, we've got the mindset down, we've got the tools, but how do we make this stuff stick? How do we weave it into the very fabric of our culture? Well, this is where leadership becomes absolutely vital, and it has to be done in a way that doesn't create a culture of micromanagement.
And this is the million-dollar question for any leader, isn't it? How do you build a team that always seeks clarity, without making them feel like they can't make a single move without your permission? The answer, it turns out, is in a few deliberate, really consistent actions.
Here's the playbook for leaders. First, anytime someone seeks clarification, praise them for it publicly. Make it visible that this is valued. Second, never, ever punish someone for pausing to get clarity, even if it feels like it's causing a delay. Third, when you have to correct something, correct the outcome, not the act of asking the question. And finally, when something inevitably goes wrong, your first question shouldn't be, who messed up? It should be, where was our system unclear?
So, let's bring this all home. The bottom line is really simple. Professionals refuse to guess. They just don't do it. Why? Because they understand that it's expensive for the business, it's unsafe for their team, and you know what? It is fundamentally unfair to hold people accountable for decisions they were never really equipped to make.
I want to leave you with this one last thought, because it's a big one. A lot of people mistake the pursuit of clarity for hesitation, and that is completely backward. Clarity isn't the opposite of speed. Clarity is the engine of speed. It is the one thing that allows you to move forward, fast, and with the unshakable confidence that you're doing the right thing.